मानुषी संवाद में आप सबका स्वागत है. Welcome to this edition of Manushi Samvad. Well, today we have with us Mr. Jagannathan, editor of Swarajya magazine. He discuss. Welcome, Jaggi. Welcome.
Welcome.
Delighted
Thank you
to
very
have
much.
you. Yeah.
Pleasure.
And he's going to talk about how the US has weaponized finance. और ये रशिया यूक्रेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के संदर्भ में हमको बताया जा रहा है, क्योंकि जो वहां हो रहा है रशिया के साथ या यूक्रेन के साथ जो गेम्स खेली जा रही हैं, उसका भारत पे भी बहुत असर पड़ रहा है और पड़ने वाला है. मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली, व्हाट डू वी लर्न फ्रॉम इट? सो जगी, द स्टेज इज ऑल योर्स. टेल अस व्हाट्स हैपनिंग.
So basically, I think after the USA went running from Afghanistan, tail between their legs, US's reputation as a superpower was in tatters. They had to show the world that they are the boss, and so they found the perfect opportunity in trying to egg Putin on by trying to extend the borders of NATO right up to Russia, which was something that they had agreed they will not do when Russia allowed the Soviet Union to break up and many of them became independent. The idea was that NATO will not expand right up to the borders of Russia so that they have security and do that. But over the last decade or so, almost till the border of Russia, every nation has joined NATO. And the last one left was Ukraine. Russia said, look, here we are drawing the line. These guys are from the same people called Rus, and we don't want you starting a NATO here. But the USA deliberately, provocatively tried to get them and use the Ukrainians as the bait in order to get them into a war where they were ready with all the sanctions that will reduce Russia from a military superpower to an economic has been. Already, as you know, the Russia is militarily a superpower, but economically it's a midget. It's not. It's much smaller than even India in terms of GDP. So they wanted. They can't take on a gorilla of their size, that is China. So they said, let me deal with this smaller guy. And so they basically pushed them into a war with Ukraine by refusing to allow a compromise on many things. And now they know. And when Russia walked into the trap and invaded Ukraine to show that they also don't lack guts, they launched the worst possible financial sanctions in history ever launched against a superpower. Such things have been done with small countries like, say, Iran or Serbia or Afghanistan, but never with a country that has nuclear bombs and can threaten the whole world, right? But they decided that they will not fight a war with Russia, obviously because the nuclear power, but they will reduce it economically to rubble. So what we are saying is that they have weaponized finance. Everything that Russia had outside Russia, they have completely put under sanctions, including the Russian central bank. This is the first time a major central bank with so many US dollar reserves and euro reserves has been sanctioned, where they can't use their own money. Right? Earlier they used to do it with...
You'll have to explain this to our viewers, how a Russian bank can be prevented from allowing the Russian money to be used by the Russian government or the Russian people. Please explain.
Yeah. Say, like, for example, India has about nearly $600 billion of foreign exchange reserves. A large part of that is invested in US bonds, that is US government bonds, because it's in dollar denominated, right? Some of it, of course, is in gold, which is kept in England and in India, in the Bank of England and India. The dollars are with US. Basically, there's a treasury bonds that you hold. So if the USA does not allow you to sell those treasury bonds, if you had to pay a bill in dollars, you will not be able to find the foreign exchange to pay for it. Because in order to fund, let's say, oil purchases, you have to pay in dollars. And that dollars you do by selling the US bonds, getting dollars in return, and pay for the whatever you purchase. Now, similarly, the Russian central bank had a lot of dollar reserves, billions of dollars with the US. Now, the USA has blocked that, and they had euro reserves with the European Central Bank. Both of them has been those
How can
their
you
own
do
money.
that?
Yeah, that's what they've done. So they have not only the central banks of this kind of scale. This is the first time probably you have such a large and major power. So they've done this with small powers like say Afghanistan and all, who anyway don't have much money with the US. But this is the first time they have done with such a large superpower like Russia. So Russia does not have access to its own money, which is why I think we are. So this is what by meaning that they've used finance, then they have sanctioned all the Russian banks. So Russian banks cannot transfer money for exports and imports with countries in the Europe and US. Only with people like India, you can have a rupee ruble exchange rate. So you can probably do, or you can with China, where you can have a ruble and yuan kind of exchange rate. But in dollars and euros, they can't transact anymore. So basically, and then they have sanctioned all the commercial banks, not just the central banks. Then they have sanctioned Russian billionaires who all their yachts and all their wealth abroad has been uh, uh, appropriated, and they've even put sanctions on them coming to the West. That means if Putin or his family or any of the Russian oligarchs land up there, they will not be able to enter the country in Western Europe, whatever it is. So basically, this is what the meaning by weaponized finance means. Basically, they will not allow Russia to use its own money for its own benefit. So they have completely blocked Russian access to money. This is why we are saying they have weaponized global finance. Now, this is now going to be a lesson for everybody. We know that what America and NATO can do if you get on their wrong side. So which means they can block you from using your own money, your own hard-earned money. It is like going to a bank and the bank has gone bankrupt and your own money is gone, right? Here they are doing through fiat what doing that. So this is going to have huge repercussions for global finance, because once you have used it with one country, what is to stop you from using it against another country? So all the countries now will think twice about holding so much money with the US or European Central Bank, or alternately they'll have to become their allies and yes men. There are two options. So this is what they are forcing the world to do. They have weaponized finance, and the lesson is there for everybody. I can't hear you.
I said, but this is dakati. This
Yeah,
cannot be called legal action, lawful action by any standards, past or present. Now,
absolutely.
the point is that if US and NATO do it, that means you have no appeal, no one that you can appeal this decision to. So,
Absolutely.
what does that imply? I mean, this is such a frightening scenario. Has the Indian government understood? And then, should we not be taking back all our treasury bonds? Or, उसको अपने देश में रखो, gold reserves अपने देश में रखो. Why do we have to put our money in, for example, our gold in England, or our dollars, our earnings there? What aren't there better ways to stock up our own money?
No, most countries unfortunately can only store three or four global currencies, the main being US dollar, because everybody is willing to take it as payment. And to a lesser extent, euros, British pounds, after they got out of, anyway, they always had their own currency, and yen. Now, I think what the world will do is use more currencies to keep its own thing, because if you remove the dollars from the US, you cannot keep it absolutely down, because as long as you're trading with the US, you have to pay them in dollars anyway. So you can pay them with the dollars. But if you want to pay, let's say, Russia with for oil, you can't pay them in dollars. You'll have to pay it in some other thing. So all countries, this is what they will do. They will evaluate how much they are vulnerable to a future US sanctions, or on any count. These guys are whimsical. Tomorrow they can decide that you are not democratic and they'll go after you and claim that we have to teach them a lesson, right? So that's where even China is worried, even though China knows that US will not do what they did to Russia, because US depends too much on Chinese goods and various other things. China is largest single holder of US bonds. So they will
Hmm.
have to
What's happening? Your connectivity is very bad. Jaggi, we can't hear you.
their money, where to keep their foreign exchange, where to keep their gold, and how much to trade in dollars. Because you keep dollars because yeah. Hello, yeah. Can you
Your
hear me?
it keeps going and coming. What's the matter?
No, it should be okay because
Your,
my connection is okay. Seems all right.
okay, then
It's
continue because in
yeah,
between it went off
yeah.
and we
Correct. I
didn't
know. I
hear
saw
half
that.
of it. So just
Yeah,
repeat the last three sentences.
yeah. So basically, because the US is trying to bring down the Russian economy and make it collapse into a very tiny economy by cutting them off from global finance, global trade, and global by implying global sanctions, and they're also threatening sanctions against people who do trade with them, like us. So there now the world is actually not with US and NATO in this. Large parts of Africa, West Asia, of course China and all are not happy with this US dadagiri, but because it's the US and everybody has to trade with the US, one quarter of world GDP is US, and everybody is holding foreign exchange in dollars as the biggest single asset. So now in the next 5-10 years, people will start rebalancing. So they will start moving some assets away from dollars to some other currencies or into gold or whatever it is. So because they now know that the US can anytime be arbitrarily take you on, and especially small countries. I mean, maybe they won't do it with India because India is too important in the containment of China's strategy, but they will still draw some red lines for us. So everybody will have to reevaluate how much to depend on the US.
Jaggi, would you say that in the long run, the most safe asset would be gold because that runs everywhere and nobody can steal it from you if you keep the gold reserves in your own country. Isn't that the best way to keep yourself safe and secure? This is
Yeah,
good old wisdom of the Indian household.
yes. In fact, a lot of people will now stock up on gold, which is why you see gold prices are still pretty strong. Some people will even go for cryptocurrency because that is something central banks cannot control. But the cryptocurrency, unfortunately, has not established itself as a easily tradable thing. It has been used too much for speculation, and one day it is $40,000 Bitcoin, another day 60,000. So its stability is not yet assured. But people will look at cryptocurrency as another option, and most people will definitely diversify away from US dollar. So what the US has done is, unless this war quickly comes to an end and this whole sanctions regime is reversed quickly, most people will start moving to multi-currency operations where they'll keep reserves with, say, British pound, euro, yen, yuan, and of course soon Indian rupee also, because a lot of people in the Gulf who import a lot from us can actually be paid in rupees as long as we guarantee them the value in some form. So their main advantage with dollar is dollar has maintained its value for a very long time, just like only gold has held its value better. So most people will use gold and dollar still, but people will diversify away.
Actually, tell me something. Why have we kept our gold reserves in England? Why not in our own country?
No, we have it. We basically hold it in a little with the Bank of England and a little here, because the idea is that if you're in a situation like it happened in 1991, if you suddenly
Yeah.
need, you're in a desperate situation and you have to offer your gold for, let's say, to purchase something desperately you need, then it should be near where you're going to buy something so that the gold can be moved quickly to whoever wants to buy it. Right.
It's just
So
a
that's
matter
one
of
of the
few
reasons why it's
hours.
kept there.
You
We have not
send it
kept it
by
in the US
plane.
for obvious reasons, but a lot of it is in India. Yeah.
Why would you keep even 2 grams of gold in England?
Now,
Predatory country, and you can't
no,
trust it. It's never
no.
been a friend. I don't know
Yeah.
why I wouldn't trust them with a
Yeah.
silver spoon. I wouldn't give them anything. 2 grams
Absolutely.
of gold even. Why?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, no. I mean, now we have to reevaluate it. But at the point when we did it, we didn't see these kind of issues coming up. So, in fact, we should keep most of it with us, and maybe with some with the truly friendly countries like France or Germany who might not
Why?
do these things.
Why? I don't understand. When
Ah,
planes can fly within hours and pay for whatever you need to pay,
yeah, yeah,
why do you need? They're not going by thela gari
yeah, yeah.
and not sailing ships.
That's right.
Yeah,
No,
it's not even
certainly.
horseback.
That's right. Anyway, gold as a physical commodity certainly can be kept with us. It's only currencies that you can't keep with you because you don't keep cash. These are held as treasury bonds. So you have no option but to keep it. In any case, the bonds are only, you only have a receipt that you hold this bond. So they can anytime say that your bonds have been confiscated. Now you don't get a paisa out of it. So that risk remains. That is why people will diversify away from one single currency which we depend on to multiple.
No, what I want to know is simply this. It's a bacha question.
Yeah.
I don't understand global finance. I don't even know how to manage my own salary. Somebody in my office does it for me
Uh,
and keeps track of my checkbook and my passbook. I honestly don't understand finance. And nor do I even wish to. Because the moment you get into that mindset of maximizing money and all the money things,
yeah.
your brain gets completely taken over by it. So I
Yeah.
prefer not to know much.
Right.
So my
Right.
question may appear very naive to me. What I wish to know is when gold has proven to be the most stable investment or saving, why would you want to invest in any currency, be it dollar or be it the French currency or German currency? Why would you put your money in other people's control?
The reason is the value of gold keeps fluctuating.
So
So what
does
really?
dollar, so
No, no, I
does
know.
pound sterling.
No, I know, I know. But what really happens is the central banks, unfortunately, have the ability to damage your valuation of gold. This is what happened in 2013 when gold prices were going high because of various other reasons. Because US dollar looked like it might in a day collapse, and they had the global financial crisis and various other things. Luckily, that didn't happen. But when US has huge reserves of gold and also many other countries. So if the US suddenly starts selling gold, your gold, if is at 1900 to $2,000, will suddenly crash to 1500. So they can actually create a problem for you there also.
And vice versa.
Yeah, but you don't
Vice
have that.
versa.
No, no, but you don't have that much gold
So
where you can
China
impact.
could have equivalent gold reserves,
Yeah,
and if
yeah,
China decides to do to US what it's doing to others, well,
yeah.
then US is going to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. But I think right now what has happened is globally, because the US dollar is held, most of the US dollar is held, the currency at least is held outside the US rather than in the US. So really what happens is the people belief in the dollar is much higher than belief in gold. So it's what is called a safe haven currency. That is, every crook also wants to keep a dollar because it sort of he thinks it has value. It's like gold. Gold and dollar are similar in terms of people wanting to hold it. Which is why US can do this dadagiri because it controls its own currency. It can print as much as it wants if it wants to pay you. So if you sell them something, they don't have to earn anything to pay you back. All that they need to do is print more dollars and say, Madhu, here you sold me 100 rupees worth of Manushi products. Here is $100. I printed it. You take it. And because you like the dollar, you want to keep it. And the whole world, from drug trade to thugs to autocrats, keep dollars. So they are able to print their currency and give it to anybody who wants it. That means they don't really have to export and earn something in order to buy imports. They just print the currency.
Jaggi, what if taking a cue from what's happening to Russia?
Yeah.
And the kind of gundagardi that US is doing uh, in in blocking their own money reserves, their treasury bonds that they've been holding. This is dakati. It's gundagardi. It's
Yeah.
not a part
Yeah.
of any stable global world order.
Correct.
Now, if supposing everybody or those who don't wish to be under the hegemony of US ki gundagardi, if all countries or majority of them with sufficient assets were to withdraw from gold and holding dollars,
Yeah.
treasury bonds, what would happen to the American economy and the value of the dollar if large number of countries, starting with China and India, and whoever else wants to be part of a freer world order, what would happen to the US economy?
See, that is something that you have to do, but you have to do it slowly over a long period of time. Because if tomorrow large amounts of US Treasury bonds get sold, let's say China and India decide to sell, say, $500 billion worth of Treasury bonds and take the money and shift it elsewhere, right? Or whatever. What will happen is the price of US Treasury will collapse so much that our own wealth will crash. So, because when you sell a bond, there is selling pressure on the bond, then the price
Ah,
of the bond will collapse. So our own wealth will crash. So we should do it over a period of time where it doesn't affect the market for market price of the bond. But if you try to do it suddenly, you will apne hi paँव पे कुल्हाड़ी मारोगी. That is why nobody is rushed to do this.
but do you see signs of this wisdom dawning?
Yes, yes. Because see, China, for example, over the last 5, 10 years, has started getting more gold. It has been buying a lot of gold. 7, 8 years back, we ourselves bought a lot of gold and kept it, but we are not really bought any more of that recently. Then China is also getting people to take payments in yuan. Huh? So they don't need to this thing. So they have so yuan is slowly getting internationalized like the dollar, right? So all the countries who buy a lot of goods from China or sell to China, they are designating their deals in yuan. Huh? So you can hold the yuan reserves or you can sell yuan and give them, pay them, whatever it is. Like just like the US Treasury. So that's what China is doing. And over a period of time, that is what we need to do. So the way out is for us to reduce dollar holdings over a period of time, make the rupee acceptable to a wider group of, say, currencies around this world. Like, for example, of course, we didn't have a neighbor like Pakistan, we could have done it faster because Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and even Myanmar and all would probably happy to work with a rupee trade arrangement.
You already do. I
Yeah,
can
we
go,
already do. Yeah,
yeah, I can go to
yeah,
Nepal and use Indian rupees. I'm at an advantage.
that's
So
right.
also in
And
Bangladesh, I'm at an
that's
advantage.
that's right. Correct.
Also
So
in Pakistan,
that's
actually.
right. Yeah,
Hmm.
no. So you need to now. What is happening at the informal level is now needs to be formalized, where you have an understanding with the Bangladesh Central Bank and Nepal Central Bank, and say that all your goods, but they still want their payments in dollars, which is why we can't go for that. At some point, when they agree that payments can be made in rupee, then it can be international. The people should be willing to accept payments not at an individual level. See, I can go and spend $1,000 in Nepal and pay it, but if Nepal, let's say, is exporting certain goods to me worth $1 billion, they should be willing to accept 7,000 rupees, 7,000 crores in rupees. That they are not yet willing to do. So it's happened on the retail level. It's not happening at the big trade level. That is what we need to do. We need to help internationalize the rupee in the local region around us first, and in West Asia, where there are a lot of Indians who anyway can afford to keep rupees. And then over a period of time, it gets acceptable. Much anyway, in the informal level, it's already happening. What is hawala? After all, it's internationalized rupee. Huh?
Bilkul. No, but
Yeah,
you know what it tells me?
yeah,
That people to people mechanisms of exchange are far
yeah.
more efficient than government to government. The
Yeah.
moment government steps into any economic activity, whether nationally or internationally, there is usually uh, a mess. There are
Yeah.
usually glitches, there are usually difficulties and insecurities. But
Yeah.
people to people, for thousands of years, no government controlled, you know, till this colonial regime came, and then we institutionalized certain controls. Otherwise, there weren't any centralized control mechanisms for what currency you will use, and it went quite well. No,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the problem is the minute the size of government grows, people gradually lose their own importance because our dependence on government to do basic things goes.
but
Uh,
we had big
uh,
empires, Jaggi.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, some of those empires were bigger than what India is today, right?
absolutely,
In the
absolutely.
past,
Yeah,
and it worked quite well. At
yes,
that time, our global trade was much larger share of the world trade, and we got a lot of gold, we sent a lot of goods, and nobody dictated terms, no ruler at the central level. So I don't think the issue is of largeness. The issue
mm,
is that this entire statist economy,
yeah,
state controlled
absolutely.
economy, state controlled trade, state manipulated currencies. They really are the problem. For thousands of years, there weren't any, and we had very big empires which functioned quite well. And India
Yeah,
prospered. So
yeah,
that's one, that big lesson. We need to think and learn from our past what worked so well. Secondly, one of our viewers, Mandar Karnik, is saying gold is not, he was responding to what I said, I think, but I want your views on it. He says, gold is not an investment, it's a security. We keep gold reserves as a security. Now, I don't agree with that. It is true that it is also a security, but I know, for example, lot of businessmen and lot of even housewives, they buy gold as an investment, just as people buy property, because gold prices usually keep going up. There are very few times in history when gold prices have plummeted so much that you lose the capital. But in that case, even property prices have crashed more often than gold prices. So, would you not say? And I know, for example, most people who keep black money, which is essentially money that the government can't touch. Huh? That's all that there is to it. It's not as if it's painted black. Now, a lot of businessmen keep gold instead of, you know, petty crore ki, yeah, I don't know what the terms are. Um, and they do it as an investment because it's incashable, isn't it?
yeah. Actually, the simplest way to understand gold is in three terms. One, gold is money. Okay, in a sense, it has exchange value. You can get money in lieu of gold, so it's like money. Yeah? Second, gold is a store of wealth. I wouldn't call it an investment because it's not like a stocks or fixed deposit, which is an investment on which you earn interest. On gold, you don't earn interest, but it keeps value, preserves value over a long period of time. Short term prices may go up and down, but over the long term, it has always stayed ahead of inflation, which means it's a it is money useful for exchange, it is wealth which is a store of value, and it is also something that gives the individual the power over his own money without the state interfering with it. It's like your own Swiss bank, you know. So that is why gold is so important in thing. And your earlier question, where you said, how come the statist stuff, medals and all, the earlier empires worked for a simple reason. The state understood that it had to do only what ordinary individuals could not do. That is, defend from external invasion or maintain some degree of law and order and those kind of things, or enforce contracts, have courts and all running. It did not try to get into every business and say, I will release money, I will print money, I will do all these things. Those are just support activities. Human beings manage their trade, their lives themselves. When they produce, they knew they will earn money. When they didn't produce, they knew they'll consume money. They knew common sense and they knew what to do. The problem was the state did not do what it was not meant to do. Today, the state, unfortunately, is doing everything that it is not meant to do, from printing endless amount of currency to deciding what the interest rate should be. I mean, as though some five guys, wise guys sitting in a room can predict what the price of money should be, and you have thousands of business economists telling you, "Oh, but the interest rate should be so much, not this much." All buffoons. But anyway, they
Yeah.
like pretending that they know more about it than ordinary people. Huh? So
Yeah.
the basic problem is the previously empires became empires precisely because the state knew what it did not have to do and what it should not do. Today's state doesn't know that what its own limits are, and people have grown to expect that whatever happens, you have to come and give me something. Huh? So the expectations of people have also changed. That if I make a fool of myself, lose my money, the state has to save me. If I go and blow up my money, you have to protect me. If I keep money somewhere in a lousy bank or a lousy stock, you have to immediately compensate me. Everything has to be done by the state. I can behave foolishly, and the state will behave even more foolishly to make sure that I don't lose money. So this is why empires are going to crumble, because the validity and solidity of money and economics is collapsing all over. And this is what the weaponization of finance, to come back to our topic, is
Hmm.
going to do, because people are rapidly losing faith in fiat money. That is the money that central banks can just print and tell you this is it, right?
Hmm.
For without doing any economic activity, if I can print money and give you,
Yeah.
अरे मेरे पास भी एक छापने का प्रिंटिंग प्रेस दे दो, मैं पैसा दे देता हूँ, उसमें क्या है? हैं? वो सेंट्रल बैंक, रिजर्व बैंक को देने की क्या जरूरत है? यूएस फेड को देने की क्या जरूरत है? हैं?
और पाकिस्तानी तो करते हैं ना इंडियन करेंसी,
हाँ,
इतनी
करेक्ट।
एफिशिएंटली छापते हैं, हमारे
हाँ,
बैंक को भी नहीं पता चलता कि वहां से
या
झपकी आई है।
एक्चुअली
आरबीआई में जब
एक्चुअली
वो
वी शुड
हुआ
हैव।
था ना, क्या
हाँ,
बोलते
हाँ,
हैं,
हाँ, हाँ,
डीमोनेटाइजेशन,
हाँ,
ये नहीं
तो
बता पाए इन्होंने, वो पाकिस्तानी नोट भी लेके लोगों को दे दिए, इसलिए आज तक नहीं हमें पता चला कितने आए और कितने गए।
करेक्ट, करेक्ट,
It is such a scam because the
या
banks actually don't know. Now, coming back to, I just want a couple of points clarified before we revert to that whole thing. You
या
said gold is not an investment because it doesn't earn interest. Okay? Isn't that what you said? Whereas if you buy bonds, if you buy da da da, whatever. But so is property. If you buy land or house, property also doesn't earn interest. If anything, maintenance cost of property depletes your monthly or yearly resources. You have to protect it, you have to clean it, you have to maintain it. You know, taxes you pay on the property. So, property by that also it doesn't earn interest, it only appreciates, which
No,
is what
actually,
gold
no, 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 no. Property is partly an investment, but not at any price. The reason is you can earn rent on it. So, what really happens is if you buy a property and give it out on rent, you're earning. It's like earning interest from a bank deposit. So, gold does not earn. But only thing is now, of course, sovereign gold bonds, you do earn interest. So, it has become, because the government is giving bonds designated in gold, on which you earn interest 2.5% a year. So
is.
that is actually, hey, the government is doing a foolish thing, but it's good for people who want to invest in gold. For once, gold actually earns returns now, because if you keep gold as a bullion, you don't earn anything except in terms of whatever value it accrues after 5 years. But you don't earn every year or every quarter or whatever it is. There's no interest on it. So it's not
Yeah.
an investment in that sense, but it's a store of value that always maintains its value against inflation, which a fixed deposit will not. Today you have 6% inflation, and fixed deposit are giving you 5.5, 6%. This means at the end of 1 year, your money is exactly where it is. So your interest is gone in inflation.
Yeah. Also,
So
gold has the advantage of being highly mobile, much more
that's
mobile than anything else. So,
absolutely,
instant encashment, which
yeah.
neither property, nor any other, nor bonds, nor this, instant. So, and
Which is why I
that's
say it's
why,
money. Which is why I say it is also money, because it's how did money come into a being? Because basically people used to keep gold, and the bankers used to issue a receipt against gold, that you have kept 100 grams of gold with me. Yes, note saying you have 100 grams worth of rupees with you. So then the notes got exchanged, saying instead of me exchanging gold for what I want to buy or sell, that notes got exchanged between, say, Madhu selling me, wants to give me 100 grams of gold. Instead of that, she gives me a receipt saying my 100 grams, which is with this bank, is now yours. I've endorsed it for you. So that's how currency came into being. That is,
Yeah.
it was originally a receipt for gold, which then became currency. And over a period of time, governments got very wise and said, if people are willing to accept these receipts, why don't I just print it in thousands and then give it?
I know, it's so bogus. I much prefer the days of silver coins,
Yeah, yeah,
copper
yeah,
coins. You
yeah.
actually knew the worth of what you were carrying.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah.
coming to some other related issues. First, a small clarification. When we hold treasury bonds, or the government does, what kind of interest does it earn?
You talk about US Treasury bonds? Yeah, that will give you 1.5, two, that kind of
There you
percent.
are.
Huh?
Yeah.
Nothing.
So
Yeah, it does. And US inflation, by the way, this year is 6%,
there you
7%.
are.
Yeah,
So I
but
know because even their banks never gave more than 2-3%.
yeah, correct,
So
correct.
naturally, treasury bonds aren't going to give you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in
correct.
that sense, it's not really a good investment in
Oh, it's a
terms of
bad investment.
it's a bad
Yeah,
investment.
yeah,
And if one has to choose between gold and more mobile, you also don't put it in the hands of Gunda
thugs.
brigade, the
Yeah,
thugs,
yeah,
the
yeah,
thuggish
yeah, yeah,
power of the world.
yeah, yeah,
We're actually feeding it. Now, coming
yeah,
back to another issue, which is linked to uh, the gundagardi that
yeah.
US is trying to practice in the Ukraine region vis-a-vis Russia, and how you think Russia has fallen in the trap. You think, but two questions related to
Yeah.
this. One,
I think your
what?
network is down a bit.
No, 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 no. My network is doing fine. You are getting. See, your screen is hanging, not mine. You can't hear me, Jagiji. Don't go away. Please come back. Yeah, yeah. Jaggi, are you there?
Y-
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm there.
All right. Now, um, I'm sure you agree that this is also to do with US ka obsessive regime change agenda, right? They wanted Putin
Yeah,
out of the way, and this regime
that's right.
change obsession has taken such perverse forms that for the first time they did it even within their own country, which is the way they got
Yeah,
rid of Trump, was a good
that's right.
example of thuggery for regime
That's right.
change.
Yeah, yeah,
And with the help of foreign powers, they didn't do it just on
yeah,
their own. There was a
yeah.
whole
That's
Islamic agenda behind it,
yeah,
right? Now,
yeah,
now this regime change, you would agree, is what they were aiming at when they tried to lay siege to Russia through Ukraine.
yeah.
What were the options that Putin had in such a situation?
I think logically, if America really didn't want war and wanted to protect Ukraine, they could easily have talked to Putin and worked out an arrangement. The problem was also that Eastern Europeans were a little more scared of Russia than others, and they were egging on the US. So the US thought this is a good chance for regime change in Russia, and so they egged on Ukraine to behave irresponsibly and say, "I'm going to join NATO" and all kinds of things. And then Putin, of course, being a macho guy, thought. So they actually egged him on to go and take on Ukraine. Now Ukrainians may be dying, but America is watching the fun and seeing Putin defeat himself because he's getting overextended because of the war. And they have given Ukraine all kinds of lethal weapons. So they may not fight themselves, they may not lose anybody, they have no boots on the ground, but they are enabling Russia's evisceration slowly. Now, the only thing Putin could have done was avoid the war and not threaten it. But unfortunately, he thought he could get something by threatening. And the US called his bluff. And then when he walked into the trap, they went the whole hog to finish him off economically. That's where we are standing right now. Whether that will happen or not, we have to wait and see in the next few months. But I think inside Russia, I don't think. I think support for Putin is probably pretty strong, even though there are detractors, because anybody who threatens you from outside will always find internal support. But the US wants a weak ruler like Boris Yeltsin, who will happily sign away bits and pieces of the Soviet Union. First, he allowed the Slavic states to independent, then the various Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, everything went out. Then last thing was Ukraine. So that's what they wanted, and they have got it. Now they want to take NATO right up to that end because they have found a reason for it. But logically, this is ultimately going to boomerang on the US, because Europe now realizes that kowtowing to America is only bringing problems to you. They need Russian gas, and they have no mortal enmity with Russia, except for the fact that he is not running a proper democracy. So,
Oh,
but
as if US is a proper
that's
democracy,
right. Yeah.
tugocracy.
No,
I
no, I
mean,
know.
it's the biggest tugocracy that there is, and
Yeah.
I think it has convinced me whatever little faith I had left in this farcical notion of democracy that we have, the Westminster model, or even the US, that it's actually one of the worst systems with the
Yeah. Yeah.
worst pretensions, the most pompous pretensions, one of the worst systems that the world has ever witnessed. So forget their democracy, because regime change is their favorite sport.
Yeah.
Now, Putin is who they wanted to replace with a puppet of sort, like you said,
Not a
Boris.
puppet. They want a weak ruler, basically.
Okay, weak ruler, but what was in it for this Ukrainian guy that he is allowed his whole country to be ransacked in this manner? What was in it for him? What is he
I
going to
know.
get?
No, he is not going to get anything except rubble. And he will take 25 years to rebuild his country, because these guys have basically smashed up a whole lot of infrastructure and other things.
Yeah,
So they will take a long time. They are hoping that USA will produce some kind of a Marshall Plan or something to rebuild that after the war. But I don't know when the war will end, and what kind of
but
financing that
look
the
at
US will
what.
do. See, the US itself is getting into trouble, okay? Thanks to their own sanctions and the weaponization of finance. Next year, the US, rather later this year, US will be in a deep recession, okay? And it has already got 6 to 7% inflation. Interest rates are going to rise like crazy, and their economic slowdown is happening in the next 1 or 2 quarters. Huh? So
Yeah,
they are not going to be in a generous mood to help Ukraine with all kinds of money. Huh?
yeah,
Same thing is happening in Europe, because Europe has just returning to growth when this war has ruined them. So they're all going to go into recession. So only two places which are going to grow are India and China. Huh? Okay. Now, you know what is going to this is the problem with these guys, that there's this whole trying to be the dada of the world. They are actually shot themselves in the foot over the medium
yeah,
term. And not only that, Europe is going to drift away from them. Germany has just announced, almost 70, 80 years after the Second World War, where they said we will not weaponize, they have announced $100 billion plan to remilitarize. Japan has just announced the same thing, that we are going to rebuild our military. So, what we created before the Second World War, a new hyperpower in the middle of Europe and in Asia, Japan. Both these guys, because of the threat of China and there the threat of the fact that Russia might be a problem, they are all going to militarize. So Germany and Japan are going to militarize. And after they do that, they won't need the US. Huh? Because they'll say we'll take care of Europe. Between France and Germany, if they, as long as they have a jugalbandi there, they will be able to create a new European security architecture. So 10 years from now, NATO will not work. It will sort of, because it will have no reason to exist.
yeah.
And logically, they will include Russia into a European security architecture, where they get cheap Russian gas, and these guys become a partner of the EU and all. That is where Europe will head, whether the Euro Russia does better in this war or fails. No matter what, they'll get included there, and US will have to be content with looking after the Atlantic on their side. So US superpower status is now under threat over the next 10 years.
It's not just superpower status, I think, but also it's internal security and stability. Internal.
Yes.
And that I'll come to in a minute. The point that I'd like to check out with you is, can you name one country that has benefited from the embrace of US wherever they went, whether in the name of establishing democracy or XYZ? They loved import dictators,
Yeah.
and they hate strong regimes, no matter what the color of that polity be. Can you name one country which has benefited? I could only think of Israel, which has stayed close to the US but has not mortgaged its self respect or its interest. It's in command of its own policy, internal as well as foreign policy. It does not let US lead it by the nose. But no other country I can think of that has prospered or done well under US hegemony. What do you say to that?
No, what really happens is, as long as you're willing to kowtow and keep your head low, partnership with the US has helped many countries. The whole of Southeast Asia became export tigers by being yes men to the US, right? So, I mean, all the Singapore and Thailand, Malaysia, all these guys, Indonesia, and all that. Then Japan itself was an export hub when it was a vassal state to the US. China became a superpower primarily because it became the biggest exporter to US. So US economy has benefited many people. It is only when you become a military threat to the US, then you start meeting problems. The US loves dictators because they don't want to deal with democracies, because they know democracies are unpredictable, because people may not like you to kowtow to the US. But autocracies they love Saudi Arabia. They used to love the Iran when the Shah of Iran was there. They used to love Suharto. They used to love Mahathir. They used to love all these guys, and Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, which are very semi-controlled kind of thing. They loved all these guys because they didn't have to. They didn't need to. They were never anti-US anytime.
Now, are you saying if you agree to their economic world order,
Yeah,
you say yes? What did they do, for example? Uh, Most of these countries that you mentioned, the Southeast Asian, all they did was they liberalized
yeah,
and they allowed capital to flow from the West to their own countries.
yeah,
It wasn't really, in that sense, the US state policy that they were kowtowing to.
yeah,
They just liberalized in the way that Narasimha Rao liberalized and allowed foreign capital to come in. Now, the
yeah,
point is that capital can come from anywhere,
yeah,
and capital is footloose, which
yeah,
is why the American middle class turned so ultra left, because
yeah,
they are very disturbed by this footloose corporate capital. And you remember that whole World Social Forum that they floated,
yeah,
their
yeah,
trade unions, their middle class, their academics, they all
yeah,
ganged up to oppose liberalization and globalization, which obviously went against the interest of the US.
yeah,
Ultimately, the rise of Asian tigers has dwarfed the US. It's
yeah,
not that they followed US policy, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
why they let loose the World Social Forum and the Meda
That's
Patkars and Arundhati Roys on us, opposing globalization.
Actually, when you say
So,
the US, no, no. So when you say the US, let me clarify. I'm not talking about the ordinary people of the US. I see the US like to talk about Russian oligarchs, but US is actually ruled by their own oligarchs. Who are these things? I mean, each one of their top 20 companies is a $2 trillion company. Huh? Okay, they make profits by going elsewhere and ruining their own workers. Why do you think
Yeah.
the whole of the US has become left? Because their own companies no longer benefit them. They
Yeah.
go to cheaper zones, like whether it's
Yeah.
China or things like that. And their own working class has stagnated in wages for the last 30,
Yeah.
40 years.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so and there it is these oligarchs, that is your Facebooks and Apples and Microsofts and Googles, they are so powerful that they can like deplatform their own president, which is what happened to Trump in January.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So they are more powerful. So when you're talking about the US, you have to talk about two guys, two major actors. One is the economic powerhouses like these guys, the big oligarchs, though they may be based in technology, technokrarchs, you can call them. They're not based on oil. Then there is the military industrial complex. They need war somewhere or the other to
Yeah.
sell what the only thing America can is super competitive in terms of quality of products is military hardware. So
Yeah.
all other things most people would prefer to buy from China, Japan, Europe, or anywhere else. But America is super competitive in military hardware because it has got extraordinary technology there. And the same thing happens in technology. So technology, they control your whole thought process. With artificial intelligence, they can tell you what Madhu is thinking right now. They can tell what Jaggi is thinking now, because their software can see what Jaggi has been doing for all these years. It can get a mental picture of who you are, and they know who should be silenced, who should be kept apart, who should be downgraded on Twitter, who should be sent out of Instagram or Facebook or silenced or not given new followers. So, for example, today I was trying to retweet your thing, but they didn't allow me to access that tweet of yours, pin tweet of yours. So
Oh, but
yeah,
that
so
is shadow ban on Madhu Kishwar.
that's right, that's right. So whenever they want
It's
to do that,
happened for the last 1.5 years.
yeah, yeah,
That
correct,
people can't see my tweets, they can't
yeah,
retweet me.
yeah,
I mean, I'm very privileged and honored to know that I'm a threat to these global giants. This
that's right.
tiny toothpick sized woman. I mean,
No,
they've
yeah.
got to be mad.
And look at the impact they have. For example, after this war started, earlier I used to occasionally watch this Russia Today program. Some of them are really good. Huh? Now they have gone. It's disappeared from your Indian TV altogether. How do you think it happened? It happened because some of the people like Tata Sky and others who used to offer that channel, because they have interests abroad, they probably asked them to quietly deplatform Russia Today. So Madhu Kishwar is small fry compared to Russia Today. Because an entire you're an individual at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you have Manushi and all that. You're more than an
Yeah, yeah,
individual.
but still, we
What
are
I mean is
toothpick
that you're still,
size.
yeah, you are still a person who is running the whole show, right? So whereas Russia Today, an entire TV thing has been banned all over Europe, Russia, in India, where they have no control, they have taken it off the Tata Sky platform. You know, so
But Jaggi, my point is that this dadagiri
yeah,
worked so long as they controlled information flow. So long as Newsweek and Time magazine were our only sources of information about the world, uh, they could they could do this. But today, that's not the case anymore. Secondly, people are waking up. Like China has created its own platforms.
yeah,
India could well have done that. If
we
only
should have.
Modi government had
Yeah,
taken a lead in this, it would have been a quantum leap forward in terms of controlling our own political narrative, not being slave to them.
yeah,
But it's a
yeah.
huge failure. I mean, they failed in the field of education, culture, and this information technology. Modi government has done very badly with. वो संडास बनाते रह गए.
Yeah.
ठीक है
No,
संडास
but
भी बनाओ, but people could have made their own sandas, but they can't create these platforms without the
yeah.
backing of the state
No, I
machine.
think they will do it because I think in some areas, though it is true that they have failed on the media side, what they have done is on the finance side, they have managed to insulate themselves. Because, see,
Yeah,
logically, if they wanted to isolate us financially, they can't do that anymore because you don't need MasterCard and Visa, you have RuPay card. You don't need their SWIFT system because you got UPI. So your digital system is now your own. You got your own Aadhaar system. You got everything that is controlled internally from India. So on the payments front, we have insulated ourselves, and they can no longer dictate terms to us beyond a point. Huh? Now this media is where we need to media and the internal internet and narrative. That is where we need to build our own platforms, and the sooner we do it, the better. I think they're doing it slowly, but they have not yet. They didn't think it was a priority, thinking that because they were too carried away by the fact that, oh, I got 2 million followers on Twitter, I got 100 million followers on Twitter, and they thought it was some great endorsement. You know. So the point is, we get too
But
carried away by
Modi ji can be ousted from Twitter in a
tomorrow.
jiff.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
Trump has he was
Absolutely,
still the president when he was ousted, right?
absolutely,
He hadn't
absolutely.
lost it yet.
That's
I
right.
mean, to do that to the president of the
Your own
US,
country. Your own
huh,
country.
your own
Huh.
country. So my next question to you is this. True, we've been much slower than China to wake up to the menace that this Dadagiri regime represents. It's getting cruder and cruder in its methods, and that sophistication is gone completely.
Hmm.
What I want to know from you is if for regime change within US they could go that far. If for regime change in Iraq they could create a whole fake narrative and actually reduce it to Stone Age,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
If for regime change in so many countries and now Russia, they can go this far. Do you not think it's likely that they want a regime change in India and Modi is their target?
Yes, yes. I mean, they have certainly set the processes in motion from the way you look at how Western media writes about us, how they know that India cannot be fully controlled, but regime change is something they have been trying very hard for. You know, so I mean, I think they failed so far. That doesn't mean they'll continuously fail because sooner or later, our government can make mistakes, and the people may indeed get angry for some reason or the other. If you have two consecutive droughts, or if you have some major failure of economic progress by 2024, something can happen. So then they are all come out in full force. Right now, they know that there is a certain degree of acceptance of Modi, and his popularity remains pretty high with the population because he has done some sensible welfare schemes that nobody denies. So he has been smart on that front, and he knows that he has traction with the people. Huh? Now, what
No,
really
I think
happened?
they,
Huh?
sorry. No, finish,
No.
please, please.
So only thing is, if he falters and makes some big mistakes on the economic front between now and 2024, all these guys will come out of the woodwork. Huh? So that's going to be. I mean, and the regime change will basically need to create some kind of a federal non-BJP front where at the state level each guy works differently, but at the post election they will try and get them into some kind of a united front. They need it only for 2 years. After that they'll manage the show after that and figure out what to do, but they want to get this government out. Certainly there is no doubt about that, and they are trying very hard.
Jaggi, I stick my neck out and say that they've already created an alternative in the form of Aam Aadmi Party.
Huh.
This is an America funded backed, it also embraces Islamic agenda, which is what has also been adopted by the US. I mean, look at the kind of laws that they are passing. Islamophobia ke khilaf, and we have every reason to be terrified of Islam, and they want to tell their people that they'll be sent to jail for being fearful of
Hmm.
this noxious death
Yeah.
cult. Now, the
Yeah.
point that I would like to um, check out with you is this. Aam Aadmi Party and its victories, starting from Delhi, which was Modi government's gift
Uh,
to the opposition.
yeah.
It was not inevitable, but they actually mismanaged after throwing out Harshvardhan
Yeah.
from the race. That was a disastrous choice.
That's right.
And
Correct.
then Bengal, They've tasted success in that formula. It was Modi government the BJP managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory again through mismanagement.
Yeah.
Maharashtra,
Yeah.
BJP managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and installed a Gunda regime,
Yeah.
outright Gunda regime. First to have uh, an alliance with them, then to surrender to them completely. Then Sharad Pawar surrender before him, giving
Hmm.
him Bharat Vibhushan or whatever. क्या क्या देते, अपना गुरु मानते हैं. I mean, look at the kind of uh, heroes Modi ji worships. Called him his political guru, and this political guru is the godfather of we know who.
Yes.
That was Ibrahim. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is this: they already have prepared. Punjab, the template has worked. Um, the Now they're going into the Himalayan states, and it may well work. It may well work there also. The point is, by 2024, if the template that worked in Bengal, the template that worked in Punjab, is going to be actually funded, financed, supported, propped up with the help of national global media in a big way. If Modi government doesn't put its act together, then we are in for real trouble. And
Yeah.
look at what they did in UP. UP had the best of chief ministers ever possible in a state like that.
Yeah.
Nobody could have dreamt that a Yogi Adityanath type of upright man, determined man, a good administrator, everything, incorruptible. I mean, he's not into stealing money, and yet the victory now has been a razor thin victory in large number of constituencies. If they could do it to Yogi in UP, I fear that they can do it far more easily to Modi ji in the 2024 election. Do you think people who are sitting there in and around Modi ji, do they realize that this is a real danger? Or are they still pumped up with this hallucinatory belief that he's the most popular man and the world is looking up to him and he can do huggy jappies with all the world leaders and he's on first name terms and they all embrace him? You know, that idiot narrative that they created by all this क्या बोलते हैं? Hugoplasy, hu- diplomacy through hugs,
Huh.
hugoplasy,
Huh.
hugoplasy.
Huh.
It's not going to work.
No.
I mean, they're carrying daggers, and they will put the dagger in his
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
hasn't
Correct.
understood it, Obama did it and humiliated this regime on our own land. तो अभी इनको समझ आ रही है कि नहीं आ रही है? Tell me, will they wake up or not?
I don't know. I sincerely hope so, but I don't know. There is some kind of reluctance to engage with people who are your real well wishers and real competent people. The point is there is too much belief in um, what you call hangers on and yes men who are happy to say that, oh, you're the greatest thing after God, kind of a thing. So, this mistake, you need to know that you have to do much more, and your opponents are much better organized than you are. The opponents made mistakes, okay, which is why so far you have carried your narrative within India at least. But they are learning from their mistakes and they are learning where they can correct it, and they are doing that. They did it in Delhi, then Punjab, a border state. Now you have a dangerous regime there, and same another border state, West Bengal, full of infiltrators. Again, it's a thing. BJP should have won it, but they didn't have the right policies, the right people, and the things. That's the real problem. I think they have to get their act together and get the narrative right, get the right people. They must engage with their friendly critics and not with yes men. Huh? Unfortunately, I don't see any signs of that. I hope they correct now, but it's going to take some time. I don't know. The threat may not be in 2024 also, but it soon
No,
after that.
Jackie, I'm telling you, my gut feeling says the threat's going to be very strong in
No, no, of
2024.
course. No, no. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it is not there. All I'm saying is the opposition for it to get its act together within the next 2 years may be a little difficult because see what happens is if Aam Aadmi Party grows, the immediate impact in some states is it will undercut the Congress votes. This is what happened in Goa. So that
Congress is on a self-destruct mission anyway, and
I
people have
know, but
written it off.
no, I know, but unless there is a complete transfer of votes from Congress to Aam Aadmi Party, like it happened in Delhi and it happened in Punjab, that
UP,
yeah, UP may not happen, but like I think
it
in
did happen
others,
in UP.
Aam Aadmi Party,
No, 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 no. I'm saying Congress vote going to Samajwadi Party.
yeah, that's gone, that's gone. Congress is
So
over in
they're
UP.
willing to transfer so long as
Yeah,
Modi goes. They don't care. घोड़ा
correct.
आता है, गधा आता है, कोई आ जाए, मोदी जाए.
That's right.
ये
Correct.
जो एक माइंडसेट है ना,
Huh.
और मोदी जी को गलत फहमी है, उनसे सारे देश को इश्क है. बहुत लोग हैं जो उनको इतना भड़काया उनके खिलाफ that this imagery of him being divisive when he is forever placating
That's
his
right. Correct.
core support base says, what are you doing? Why are you placating the enemies of India? And they say
Absolutely.
divisive hai, hostility
Hmm.
karta hai, religious उन्माद फैलाता है. वो तो कभी हिंदू की बातें नहीं करता,
Correct.
सिर्फ कभी
That's
कभी
right.
मंदिर पूजा करने जाता है और यहाँ पे माथे पे कुछ लगा लेता है. उसके अलावा when
Unfortunately,
do
na,
people,
I don't
what?
know. Somewhere the Nehruvian template appears so attractive to these fellows that even Vajpayee wanted to be a Nehru of some kind, and I hope, though even though Modi doesn't have as much love for Nehru as somebody else, but the template of the Nehruvian leader seems to be very attractive for all Indian leaders. I do not know why, but it seems so, and it's a fatal kind of mistake.
You think Yogi will fall for it?
Not if he is his own man, but as long as uh, he has to be in the good books of the current top leaders of the party, he will play a subdued role in the sense that he will also say the usual politically correct things because he doesn't
Yeah.
want to be seen as like if he was his own man, I would think he will say what is in his mind. But at this point, he has to uh, keep his own voice a little below that of the national leadership for various reasons, for his own survival. Otherwise, they might go and damage things there. You know?
Well, they're trying to contain him for sure.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Containing they
That's right.
are.
They are.
Containing
They
him
are.
they are. And that's
They
why
are.
they give him the narrative. मैंने इतने बिजली दिए, मैंने इतने घर दिए, मैंने इतना किया. You know, the
Yeah.
whole Vikas agenda is all that
Yeah.
he parroted. And didn't even seem real in his mouth because he
Yeah.
knew that he has
That's
larger
right.
issues to tackle and larger threats to tackle. And
No. See.
they didn't want him to even mention any of that through
That's
this
right. Correct.
entire period. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
चलो
No, see,
देखते हैं.
what you have to do on the economic front, you have to do. Let's say that's like the bread you need to deliver everywhere. Like if your economy is collapsing, you won't. People are not going to vote no matter what you do. Huh? So, or what, even if you bring up the right issues. But the point is, so you need to mention that. But the point is, you have to see that that's only a necessary condition. It is not what you need to ultimately do to take this country in a more unified fashion and protect the interests of the majority community.
Okay, last question for the day. The entire economic agenda of this regime seems to be addressed towards the bulk of it, I would say, is Labharthiyon ki sarkar. It's a sarkar for the Labharthis, people who need free cylinders, people who needed subsidy for toilets, people who needed direct bank transfer for farm subsidy, for this, for that. Labharti, free ration, Vridha pension, 1,000 rupees to every 60-year plus. I mean, Labharti, Labharti, Labharti. I still haven't understood what is there for you and me. We too are citizens. Even our citizenship rights are not protected. I could be butchered and there'll be no one to come protect me, including my own country's police. What is there for me? Can I hope to send children of our family to schools that will make them not deracinated, self loathing Hindus? Is there a school or a college or a university I can send them where they can actually grow up to be self respecting Hindus, civilizationally rooted, culturally sound, and not so deracinated? What is there for me? Even healthcare, the mindless building of what I would call allopathic hospitals in a
Yeah.
country where Ayurveda has so much more potential. Our ways of healing are so far better. And to be filing 1,500 criminal cases against Patanjali for claiming that COVID may coronal works. ये क्या हो रहा है? I don't understand. What is there for me? I don't want to go to hospital if I get a virus fever. I know I'll come out dead. More likely, most people who died went to hospitals. Those who stayed at home and did their totkas, their grandmother totkas, actually survived. What is there for me? I want to know as a citizen.
I think the government has calculated that you have no option but to back them when it comes to the crunch. So whereas the people who need to get economic benefits in order to vote for them, they're going for them. Okay. At one level, I would say it's also good. These many people are indeed poor and they may have slipped into poverty during COVID. All those things are real. So and also part of that was necessary because if the BJP had to move from being a purely so-called right-wing party, which is there with Maharajas and rulers and not with the people, Modi has shifted the party more to the center left. You know, so in
Ultra
that
left.
sense,
Tell me
huh?
which leftist party. Tell me which leftist party in India did as much Labharti politics as does
Yeah.
Modi. Tell me
No,
one.
I know, but
Not
that's what
one. So don't
that's
say center left. He's far
okay,
left.
okay,
Okay. So far,
yeah,
I don't mind if you see if you reach. It's a matter of joy for me if the poor get adequate food.
yeah,
But it would be much greater joy for me if their children got the kind of education that's
correct,
world class but culturally rooted. So that within 10 years, a whole new generation of well fed kids, well educated kids who will not need to remember their caste when applying for a job, where you can do away with politics of quotas, which is dividing our society,
yeah,
and protect us also from demographic invasion. If
yeah,
you're not doing that, लाभार्थी तो सबसे ज्यादा बांग्लादेशी है, सबसे ज्यादा मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी है, सबसे हर लाइन में रोहिंग्या मुस्लिम है, उनको कार्ड आइडेंटिटी कार्ड भी मिल जाता है, उनको घर भी मिल गए. पाकिस्तान से जो हिंदू रेफ्यूजी आए आज तक उनको नहीं मिले सिटीजनशिप राइट्स, घर उनको
correct,
नहीं मिला,
correct,
और रोहिंग्यास को मिल गए हैं. तो ये लाभार्थियों की लिस्ट भी तो आपकी देखिए ना, इतनी विकृत है.
yeah,
यूपीएससी
correct,
जिहाद करने दे रहे हैं लाभार्थियों के चक्कर में. तो उस
yeah,
कम्युनिटी को लाभार्थी बनाना जिसका खुला एजेंडा है, टुकड़े होंगे तेरे, भारत तेरे टुकड़े होंगे, तो कुछ तो one should learn from UP results. They've all voted en masse to cut down, cut to size yogis,
yeah,
which
correct. So this is the biggest failure of this government has been the failure to change root and branch the education system and the deep state of the left and deracinated bureaucracy which they should have got rid of, including in the judiciary. Now in the next few months you are going to have a new chief justice who is the ultimate in that left liberal space, who God knows what more damage he's going to do. But these fellows, unfortunately, these are the areas where he should have done major changes. Instead of that, they have not done that. They have not built the intellectual base for the regeneration of this country. Instead of that, they are allowing some louds to go and shout slogans like Jai Shri Ram and all without actually doing anything useful. You know, so this is how they think that some kind of being in the news and on Twitter on one particular day is important, not these structural changes. And that is where I think we have wasted 8 whole years. Unfortunately, these 8 years are going to be very difficult to get again. We have wasted time. Huh? Now, in the next 2 years, you can't do because you're again facing election after election. Gujarat is a major thing where Aam Aadmi Party is going to try and do some
Yeah.
major thing. Last time you barely won with great difficulty. This time, hopefully, you won't face that problem, but you are facing challenges. Yeah. So my point is, when they had the time, they did not do what should have been done for the long term. They've always been living on short-term election kind of rhetoric and allowing individuals to take decisions which may make the news for the day, but they are not. They are actually helping the negative narrative about us. Instead of thinking strategically, we are thinking only tactically in a very short-term way, which is not going to help us. So I think the biggest failure is there on the strategic fronts, on the deep state front, and on the education front. We have failed completely so far. 8 years have been wasted.
Now, last comment from a viewer. Um, Power privilege says states with Hindus as minority will split from the union. That is exactly what the divisive, subversives want. Pluralist Bharat is the only way to a unified nation. I don't know if pluralist, what we mean by pluralist. I honestly, Jaggi, I want you to comment on that because I don't want to live in the shadow of Islam. I don't think
No,
that's the kind of pluralism I want. I
no,
don't want to live in the shadow of Christianity with their agenda of harvesting souls and then turning them into Maoists and secessionists. That's not pluralism for me. We
no.
were plural before these Akrantas came and transformed us into slaves. Tell me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think there is any scope for two views on this. This pluralism by allowing some minorityism to take center stage is absolutely the wrong prescription for us. What we need is a clear dominance of Hindu interests. We can protect the minorities, but not at the cost of ourselves. We are not going to go and attack them or murder them. That's not what we intend to do. If you mean pluralism in that sense, that Hindu pluralism will work. But if Hindus do not dominate demographically, that's the end of India. Because unlike the Christian world, there are 100 and odd Christian majority countries, 50 Muslim majority countries. There is only one country that can protect the Hindus and Hindu interests. And if that country fails to do that, then I don't see why we exist at all. So we have to be clear. And this demographic global reality has to be stated. If anybody says, why do you think put Hindu interest first? Very simple. Tell me, out of the 200 other countries, is anybody going to come to fight your battle if you don't fight it
Mm.
yourself? So you've got to do it. There is no other way about it. You have been given the responsibility for protecting the interests of the world's third largest grouping called Hinduists. And if you don't protect it and you're gradually allowing it to be eviscerated and destroyed, then you're failing in your duty.
Yeah, and if tiny Israel can do it,
Yeah.
which is smaller than Delhi,
Uh,
well, if India can't put its act together, then I guess we deserve to vanish and fade away from whatever the surface of this earth.
yeah.
So, Dadagiri will fail. Some power privilege says, let's hope. And a lot of people are predicting that the economic order post World War II is coming to an end, and it's
Yes.
going to be the end of US Dadagiri for sure. I just hope the embrace of China won't be as lethal and that we protect ourselves from that as well. Would you
Absolutely.
agree?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I think we have to maintain. We have see Atmanirbharta is very important. I mean, PM that part he said right, but we should have done started it 8 years ago, not last year. So many things we should have been very solid in, but we have started very late. After China attacked you in Ladakh, then you started. So it's a
Say
bit
that.
late, but better late than never. That's all I can say.
And that's right. And better late than never, we realize that the US is heading for regime change. It's been making
Yes,
consistent efforts. That's what Russia Ukraine war was all about. And I hope our regime realizes that it's a real danger. It's a real danger, and we need to wake up. Thank you, Jaggi. It's been a
thank you.
very, very insightful conversation. I mean, I've enjoyed your comments, I've enjoyed your insights and learned a lot. And I hope our viewers did so too. I'm sure because I see a lot of comments, well informed comments. I
Yeah,
see very well informed comments on the,
right.
especially Mandar Karnik. He's been running a commentary. He's been giving a running commentary on
Right,
on your
right,
presentation. So
right.
thank you, Jaggi, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, viewers,
Namaskar.
for staying with us.
Yeah,
Please do
thank you.
like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and send me your feedback at editor@manushi-india.org. We'll have you soon again, Jaggi. And
Thank
viewers,
you.
please do like, share, and subscribe to this channel and get others to do so too.
Thank you.
Dhanyavad ji, Shubh Ratri,
धन्यवाद.
Vande Matram.
शुक्रिया.